Welcome back. So this video I'm about to show you really frustrated me because it's crazy how quickly people will copy or steal your content online. I just started making content only a couple months ago and already.
Welcome back. So they say don't believe everything you see on the internet. Well, after last week, you might want to take that to heart. In this video, I'll explain why and what you should be doing.
So apparently this guy is some new YouTuber and it seems to me from what I can tell that he's copying my style and content in my videos. I watched a few of his on his page and they seem like carbon copies. And if you're thinking that his videos look a lot more professional, what you should be thinking is that person doesn't exist. And that video is totally AI generated. I just went online and made it in literally 1 minute with only a description. If you're chronically online, like some of us, you might have seen those kinds of videos going viral over the past week or two.
A detonation has just occurred on the outer ring of the city. We'll now be going live to our top influencer opinions. OMG.
Maybe you can spot those super subtle giveaways that tell you it's AI. But not everyone has the same algorithm as you, and not everyone consumes the same content. Not everyone is as plugged into the rapid progress happening in AI, specifically AI-generated video. And not everyone grew up with this level of technology. Even though people, including older generations, have been adapting to smartphones, the internet, and social media since the 2010s, what we're seeing now with AI is extremely unprecedented. This technology is moving faster than many people are even aware of, let alone ready for. And for some, especially people in older generations, you can imagine it might be an even harder adjustment to constantly question the reality of what they're seeing. About a week and a half ago, Google announced its newest AI video generation model called VO3. It can create video from simple descriptions. And with this newest model, for the first time, these AI video generation tools are able to produce not just clunky, obviously fake content, but full photorealistic scenes with complex actions and even synchronized audio and voice that matches the visuals and what's happening in the scene almost perfectly. As you saw with that intro clip, it's becoming unbelievably easy for anybody who wants to type in a description and generate a video of someone saying something or something happening that looks and sounds so real that many people who see it simply would not be able to tell it wasn't. Now let's just marinate on that for a second. What are the implications? What's possible now and what might become likely? Here are just some simple examples to ponder. So first, when election season comes up, imagine if AI is used to create leaked video footage appearing to show election officials tampering with ballots. Even if it is debunked later, the public's faith in elections, already shaky before AI, will continue to decrease, causing more people to check out and avoid voting, handing more power over to the people who already will prefer you not to vote. Imagine AI-generated videos of crimes in specific neighborhoods used to fuel racial profiling or justify increased surveillance and oppressive policing. Or imagine AI-generated content of non-existent people using hateful rhetoric to antagonize one group or to encourage another to hate. In an already polarized world, the potential for nefarious use, especially when this tech is so accessible, is vast. And even if you feel like you can spot the fakes, you got to remember your grandmother scrolling through Facebook, or remember your uncle who sends you every alarming video he sees. I've seen AI generated body cam footage that would fool most people. It fooled me when I first saw it. The point here isn't about one specific AI model being super dangerous. The point is that we all need to be hyper aware of the rapidly advancing capabilities of AI in general. And if you are aware, and there are people around you who aren't, your parents, your grandparents, your friends who aren't as online, you need to be talking to them, educating them, help them prepare for a world where they'll encounter AI generated content designed to be hyper realistic and potentially hyper targeted for manipulation. You need to warn your grandmother about the crazy videos she's going to see and why she can't automatically assume that they're all true. I just had this exact conversation with my own father. And I'm not even fully diving into the deepfake technology that is already widely available, where someone could take this very video of me right now and reanimate my face, use my voice, and make it seem like I said things I never would. That's a reality I and everyone putting themselves out here have to accept. And as I reckon with it, I'm trying to emphasize that you need to be reckoning with it too and understanding the dangers. Now, usually my videos dive into how our political and economic systems are intertwined, how money translates into political power, which then translates back into more money for those with the most money, creating this feedback loop that most of us are cut out of. With this video, I'm bridging the gap. I want to share with you what actually motivated me to start this whole video series in the first place. About 2 years ago, I first started using ChatGPT. It was March of 2023 when they first released GPT-4. And in that moment, I'm not gonna lie, I had an existential crisis. I could not stop thinking about the immediate and long-term implications of what this technology could bring. On one hand, you hear all the amazing promises like AI helping us to make incredible scientific discoveries, boosting productivity, unlocking new creative tools, revolutionizing education, healthcare, maybe even helping solve the climate crisis by designing new materials or cracking nuclear fusion. The potential positives do seem limitless, but being the realist I am, I also saw the unlimited negative implications. I realized that if I can use AI to be more productive, then so can the people building AI. They can use AI to improve AI and create a feedback loop, making these systems smarter and more capable at an exponential rate, eventually being able to improve themselves. I knew the image generation models that were very popular then would only get better, and then video wouldn't be far behind. I thought about jobs, and not just manual labor, but how many white collar, creative, analytical jobs could be automated if AI gets smart enough. What happens when robots can understand the world semantically through these powerful AI models? What happens to millions of people if they're displaced from their jobs at the same time that there's a shrinking labor market offering no new opportunities? How do they participate in the economy? How do they pay for food, clothing, or shelter for their families? I thought about the incentives for the big AI companies. They're in a race to capture this new market. Even after many AI tech leaders, including folks like Elon Musk, signed a letter a couple years ago asking for a 6-month pause on advanced AI development. That pause never happened, and the race never slowed down. I thought about misinformation and disinformation. If our information ecosystem is already polluted with bad info from people with bad intentions and good intentions going wrong, what happens when anyone can generate deeply convincing fake news, fake evidence, fake anything at scale? I also learned later about the environmental impact, the massive amounts of water and energy these AI data centers consume, taxing our energy grid. And that wasn't even on my radar initially, but it's another huge concern. So I mixed all these ingredients in my head, and I kind of assumed everyone else was seeing the same storm clouds gathering. But I quickly realized two things. One, a lot of people weren't using AI daily, so they weren't viscerally feeling its rapid progress or thinking through its implications. It was just background noise to them. And two, many people weren't informed enough to begin with about how our political and economic systems actually work, how power operates, to fully grasp the scale of the dangers ahead. And that's what led me here. That's why I started making these videos. So if you've been tuning out, if you felt overwhelmed or cynical about engaging with what's happening in the world, I truly believe this is arguably the most important time in modern human history to be tuning in. This is a time to care about what's going on in our government and our economy, with technology, with the world. I cannot emphasize that enough. And to that end, there are a couple of critical things you should know regarding AI and how the government is handling it. So back in 2023, the previous administration signed an executive order, which was a first attempt to establish safety requirements and oversight for AI development, addressing risks to consumers, workers, and national security. But when the current administration entered office, that executive order, that attempt to regulate the AI industry, was revoked. Instead, the push has been for AI dominance, which in practice is just a code word for deregulation. Not passing strong laws to mitigate these risks, but actively removing potential guardrails. So much so that in the big beautiful bill that just passed the House of Representatives last week to renew the 2017 tax cuts that I spoke about in video 6, a statute was tacked on that will prevent any state from passing any significant AI regulation for the next decade if the bill passes the Senate. We went from almost zero AI capability in daily life to where we are now in about 2 to 3 years. Imagine an AI industry with virtually no rules, whose stated goal in the case of major players like OpenAI is to develop AI that can outperform humans at most economically valuable work. Basically every job that makes money, while no states are allowed to guard against that outcome. And the federal government isn't stepping up with any meaningful protections either. And on top of that, you have CEOs of the biggest AI companies themselves warning that millions of jobs could be replaced in the next 5 years.
A well-known and respected tech CEO, Dario Amodei, who heads a cutting-edge AI company called Anthropic, is raising alarms tonight about AI's potential impact on employment that could soon be felt. While he says AI can lead to incredible advancements like medical breakthroughs and boost the economy, he believes it could also lead to half of entry-level white-collar jobs disappearing and 10 to 20% unemployment in the next 1 to 5 years. I spoke to him just before air about that and other implications he thinks AI may have on society. You are running an incredibly important company in AI, and you know this better than anybody. why are you raising the alarm? Because it's not necessarily, I would think, in your best interest, because a lot of the messages we hear from, at least publicly, from, you know, some AI CEOs and stuff is a little bit more, yes, there may be problems, but, you know, writ large, this is a fantastic thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think the reason I'm raising the alarm is that I think others haven't as much, and you know, I think someone needs to say it, and you know, we need to find a way to you know, to achieve the benefits and mitigate or prevent the harms.
That should matter to you. I promise you that will eventually affect you, no matter who you are, no matter how much money you make, or how insulated you think you are. So the least we can do, as I always say, is one, get informed and stay informed, and crucially, inform others. Normalize talking about these pressing issues, AI, political influence, economic fairness, in more of your daily spaces. And two, learn where politicians you can vote for or against actually stand on these critical issues. AI regulation, corporate power, workers' protections. See what decisions they've actually made, and then consider voting accordingly based on what you care about and what your values are. The reason I'm making this video series is to do my part, to help more people, at least in my circle, get informed so we can effectively organize, take collective action, and advocate for policies and politicians who might actually have our best interests at heart, especially during this incredibly uncertain period that is quickly approaching. Okay, we've seen the AI angle and why this is also urgent. Now let's connect that to what this video was originally going to explore, the long-standing tactics of influence and how AI is poised to supercharge them. So we've talked in previous videos about this cycle where the ultra-wealthy and corporations spend their money to influence us to vote for the candidates or support the policies that will ultimately help them make more money. We see the most obvious signs of this during election season with endless floods of political ads. But here's the main point of this video, what I really want you to grasp, that this is only the tip of the iceberg. What many of us don't realize is that we are being influenced year-round all the time. Our entire realities are being subtly shaped by these same powerful interests, and it's been this way for a long, long time. What is new, and frankly what makes this moment so critical, is how AI, like the kind of video generation we just looked at, for example, gives them an unprecedented, almost terrifying power to amplify their existing tactics. They are constantly working to shape what we believe is true, what we learn about, what we have access to learning about. Why? Because if they can shape our baseline understanding of the world, if they can get enough of us already primed to see things their way or to conveniently ignore what they don't want us to focus on, then come election time, and with everything that happens in between, much of their work is already done. Essentially, they're trying to mold society with their own blueprint, ensuring the public and our institutions inherently support their interests before any specific debate over individual policies begin. And in that process, we, the public, often end up being both the tools for and subjects of their entrenched control. This video aims to show you some of the key methods, beyond the obvious campaign donations and lobbying, that these architects of influence use to design our reality. One of the most fundamental ways these architects shape our reality is by aiming to control the flow of information itself, because if you can control the information, you heavily influence thought. This control takes many forms. Some ultra-wealthy individuals directly own the digital platforms where millions get their news and form opinions. Elon Musk owning X, formerly Twitter, and Mark Zuckerberg's Meta, Facebook and Instagram, are prime examples. These aren't just passive platforms. Their ownership structure allows for significant influence over content and narratives, what's amplified and what's suppressed. This direct ownership extends to influential traditional news outlets as well. For instance, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, owns the Washington Post. And for decades, media moguls like Rupert Murdoch, say that 5 times fast, have built media empires like News Corp, which includes Fox News and Wall Street Journal, shaping the news landscape for millions of people. So, when the owners of these massive communication channels, whether digital platforms or legacy media empires, also have strong political or business agendas, how can we expect the information flow to be truly neutral? We often end up getting a very specific, curated slice of reality fed to us repeatedly. And the proximity of some of these billionaires to political power is often very visible, like when the tech leaders such as Musk, Zuckerberg, Bezos, and Google's CEO Sundar Pichai were seen in the front row at President Trump's inauguration in January. Beyond direct ownership of major outlets, significant influence is also wielded by wealthy donors and families who fund or build specific media ecosystems designed to relentlessly push particular narratives. For example, the Mercer family, major conservative donors, heavily funded Breitbart News, transforming it into a potent voice for certain viewpoints. Similarly, on the other side of the ideological spectrum, figures like George Soros, through his Open Society Foundations, fund a wide array of media initiatives and civil society groups globally, all aiming to shape public discourse according to their vision of an open society. Beyond controlling the message, these architects also work to make it seem like everyone already agrees with their agenda. It's a tactic called astroturfing, where they create these fake grassroots movements bankrolled by big moneyed interests to mimic genuine public opinion. They create these front groups with wholesome sounding names, run slick PR campaigns, and suddenly a policy that mainly benefits a few corporations or wealthy individuals appears to have widespread organic support. They use this power of manufactured consensus because it's effective. We're social creatures, and most of us don't want to be the odd one out. Astroturfing preys on this human tendency by creating an illusion of popular agreement, which can sway people who might otherwise be undecided or even opposed. These architects also play the long game by funding think tanks. Outfits like the Heritage Foundation, the creators of Project 2025, and the Cato Institute on the right, which often advocate for policies like deregulation and lower taxes, or the Center for American Progress on the left, which typically supports different approaches regarding government roles and social programs. These organizations are packed with experts who produce a constant stream of reports, studies, and opinion pieces, all pushing their specific ideologies and policy solutions, influencing debates on everything from economic policy to healthcare and environmental protection. A key goal here is to shift what is known as the Overton Window. This concept, developed by Joseph P. Overton from the Mackinac Center for Public Policy, describes the range of ideas the public is willing to consider and accept as legitimate at any given time. Think tanks work for years, even decades, to move this window. An idea that once seemed radical or extreme, whether it's a particular approach to tax policy, healthcare reform, or environmental regulation, gets repeated so often by these funded experts that it gradually becomes normalized and starts to be treated as common sense by politicians and media alike. They're not just trying to win today's argument, they're trying to define the boundaries of all future arguments. To see how many of these tactics can be combined into a massive, long-term influence campaign, let's look at one of the most consequential examples: the decades-long, heavily funded effort to deny climate science and to delay meaningful action on climate change. This wasn't just a few skeptics with different opinions. This was and is a sophisticated operation, and we know from their own internal documents that key players understood the risks long before they publicly admitted them. For example, investigations revealed that Exxon's own scientists were internally warning executives about the dangers of CO2 emissions and climate change as far back as the late 1970s.
Oil companies like Exxon knew the scientific reality 40 years ago, but waged a war of deception that cost us precious time in the fight to save our planet. In 1977, Exxon scientist James Black told the company's top executives that fossil fuel usage was releasing enough carbon dioxide to change the planet's climate. 2 years later, in 1979, an internal Exxon memo noted that the buildup of CO2 in the atmosphere would, quote, bring about dramatic changes in the world's environment. That's in 1979. In a 1981 memo, Exxon executive Roger Cohen cautioned against understating the threat to our planet, warning that the Earth's temperature could rise so high that it would, quote, produce effects which will indeed be catastrophic, at least for a substantial fraction of the population. That's in 1981 that Exxon executive Roger Cohen was warning of this.
Yet, despite this clear internal understanding, Exxon and other major fossil fuel corporations later spent millions funding groups to publicly question climate science and vigorously lobbied against policies to address it. Further illustrating this deliberate strategy, a leaked 1998 memo from the American Petroleum Institute, crafted with input from Exxon, Chevron, and other industry groups, laid out a global climate science communications plan. Their explicit goal was to make uncertainties in the climate science part of the conventional wisdom. The memo stated that, and this is directly from it,
victory will be achieved when average citizens understand uncertainties in climate science. Recognition of uncertainties becomes part of the conventional wisdom. Media understands uncertainties in climate science. Media coverage reflects balance on climate science and recognition of the validity of viewpoints that challenge the current conventional wisdom. Industry senior leadership understands uncertainties in climate science, making them stronger ambassadors to those who shape climate policy. Those promoting the Kyoto Treaty on the basis of extant science appear to be out of touch with reality.
So you have internal acknowledgement of potentially catastrophic risks, followed by a documented strategy to deliberately manufacture doubt and make those pushing for action based on the science seem out of touch with reality. Why would they do this? What could possibly motivate such a coordinated, multi-decade effort to obscure the truth and delay action on something as big as climate change? The motivation, it becomes clear, boils down to protecting trillions of dollars of profits for the fossil fuel industry, avoiding costly regulations that will impact our business model, and maintaining their dominance over our energy systems for as long as possible. With these motivations and blueprints in hand, the multi-pronged campaign unfolded. Networks connected to individuals like Charles and David Koch, alongside major fossil fuel corporations, poured hundreds of millions into organizations like the Cato Institute, Heritage Foundation, and the Heartland Institute. These became factories for reports, expert testimonies, and media appearances, all designed to sow doubt about climate science and attack proposed solutions. Groups like Americans for Prosperity, a Koch flagship, launched initiatives like the Hot Air Tour and the No Climate Tax Pledge, creating the appearance of widespread grassroots opposition to climate policies. They worked to amplify any perceived scientific uncertainty, aggressively promoted controversies like ClimateGate to discredit climate scientists, and funded academics to produce research challenging the consensus. Koch Industries and other fossil fuel giants have spent fortunes lobbying Congress and funding political candidates who would oppose climate regulations and promote fossil fuels. Their efforts effectively shifted the Overton window on climate action for many years, making serious policies seem economically damaging or scientifically unnecessary. And the result? Critical delays in global climate action, weakened environmental protections, a public often confused by disinformation about the subject, and a political landscape where addressing climate change became intensely polarized, all driven by the desire to protect profits and avoid change, with the consequences borne by all of us and future generations. So as you can see, this isn't just abstract political theory. This architectural level of influence shaping our information ecosystems, what we see as common sense, and even major global issues like climate change, it all translates directly into what happens in your life. It impacts your job security, how much you get paid, it impacts the air your children breathe, and the safety of your drinking water. It impacts the cost of your healthcare. It impacts the fairness and integrity of our democratic process and whether your voice as an ordinary citizen actually counts. But as I said in video 7.5, the thing we have to realize about these architects of influence is how much they rely on us, our beliefs, our votes, what we share, what we ignore, our silence even, to function. They spend billions trying to ensure that we, consciously or unconsciously, help advance their agenda. And I want to be clear, the system works as poorly as it does for most of us because thus far, we have largely allowed it to. It will continue to do so if we don't inform ourselves and enough others to reach a critical mass that demands change. My goal here isn't to make you feel hopeless or cynical, even though this stuff is heavy. But understanding this architecture of influence and seeing how these pieces connect is the absolute first, most critical step towards average citizens reclaiming some agency. It's not about getting angry or frustrated at the other side. It's about recognizing how the system itself is being deliberately engineered, often by forces that don't represent the vast majority of us. The whole point of this series is to arm you with information so we can start having more honest, informed conversations. So please, if this resonated, share it, talk about these things with your friends, your family, people at work. Does knowing how this machinery operates change how you view the news or, the big political debates going on right now? What do you think we can do as ordinary people when faced with this level of coordinated power? I genuinely want to hear your thoughts in the comments if you have any. And remember that AI we started with? Imagine all those tactics, shaping information, faking grassroots support, generating expert opinions. Imagine all that supercharged by AI that can create extremely convincing fake videos and information at an unprecedented scale. That's why the urgency to understand and act is greater than ever. Time is running out to get a handle on these systems of influence before they become even more entrenched and opaque. In our next video, we're going to take an even bigger step back. We'll start to examine the overarching economic system that all these architects are operating within and actively shaping, capitalism. We'll examine its promises as well as how it actually functions, and critically, how it gets twisted and manipulated by the kind of powerful influence we've explored today. You definitely don't want to miss that discussion. Thank you for watching. As always, stay informed, keep asking those hard questions, and keep talking to each other. In a world where seeing might not always be believing, our ability to critically think and communicate becomes more vital than ever. I'll see you next time.